welcome. Today we are going to be doing our pixel art take on Bob Ross's Season 12, Episode 10 portrait of Mountain at Sunset. To begin with, we start by laying out all of the major elements of our scene here using our line work. We start with the mountains and kind of move that into the place that I want it to be. These are kind of those mid-ground mountains here. And then we need to figure out where our little plots of land are going to go around the lake area here. And again, this is just trying to make sure we know where all the major elements are going to be before we get started doing too much detail work. For the sky, we're going to start by making use of A-Sprite's gradient tool that allows us to do some dithering between the colors here as we go. This would take a lot of work without the tool doing it for us, but the idea here is just to kind of have a smooth gradient from the bright yellows to the dark blues at the top of the sky. Next we get a really bright yellowish color here to make this cloud almost a peachy color. And now we're going to try and mix in the colors here a little bit. We don't want the super uniform pattern that the dithering gives us. We want something a little more random to approximate the swirling clouds in the sky. We're adding some more of the dithering dots back in. And I don't like the way this big blue section in the sky looks. I'm doing a little bit more gradient work here. And there, I think that looks pretty close to a nice sunset sky. Now let's concentrate on these mountains. Start by outlining the general shape of the mountain range here, and filling that in with a solid color. We need to define our ridges here. These are fairly steep mountains, so those ridges are going to be pretty vertical, getting a little shallower as we get to the edge of the mountain range and we light up the sunward sides of our mountains here. Now those sides aren't exactly pointing at the sun. Since this is a sunset here, there's going to be a lot of back edge lighting, so I tried to light up the edges of the mountains here. We're moving on to adding some snow and texture here. Some little ridges here and there. Just trying to break it up. Make it look natural. Adding some shadow pieces in here. It's easy to get stuck on the detail work here. Sometimes it's good to take a step back and look at the picture in the thumbnail in the lower right, because that's going to give you a better idea of what the painting as a whole is going to look like, or pixel artwork in this case. On the shadowed side here, we're adding some darker snow, trying to use those darker colors and the lighter colors more sparingly. Here's where we're really making that edge lighting pop with the bright colors on the edges. Going back and doing some more detail work here. This can take a lot of time, so it's best to just lose yourself in it. Adding the little valley over here. And some more sun-facing mountains over here. Not as much snow towards the bottom of the mountains. And this is how our mountain range turned out. Next, we're going to tackle the mid-ground mountains. These are almost completely covered in shadow, so we just use a single shade of dark blue to indicate that mid-ground mountain range there. There is some foliage as it approaches the lake here, so we're adding our grasses in by using vertical strokes. And we're just tidying up the shoreline here. We'll add in some varied colors of grass here to give us some depth. Just giving him some more detail here. Adding some lighter bits throughout here to indicate maybe some different types of plants growing in those sections. And then here our dark mountains are facing away from the sun, but they do get some edge lighting from the back. And here is our midground. Up next, we're going to tackle some of the more foreground elements. We start by blocking in the spot that our water is going to be, our lake. And then we're also going to block in the earthen structures on each side of the lake here. This is where our bushes and trees are going to go. And then we start the process of putting our grasses onto the dirt here. We're doing those vertical strokes. Filling in some of the mid-ground here with some of that dark blue. That's going to be an area that's mostly hidden by the trees that we'll put in later. We're varying the colors of our grasses in here to build up that texture, making clumps of the lighter value here. At this point, I'm not liking the dirt behind the grasses. I want the grasses to completely cover. But first, we put in some flowers. And we get rid of the dirt there. Make our vegetation a little more lush. Let's head on over to the other side of the lake and do the same thing there. This little clump of land's going to be the home for a couple of trees and some rocks, maybe some flowers. Varying the flora over on this side of the lake. Alright, now it's time to add some rocks in there. Making some oval shapes here. I'm trying to highlight the spots that would catch the fading sun here and shadow the sides that'll be closer to the ground. Just making a little line of rocks here along the shore. They look kind of like they're sitting up on top of the grass now, so I'll add a little grass over the edges of them to make them really look like they've settled into the shoreline there. Head over to the other side and make some more rocks. On this side, the light is kind of creeping over the mid-ground mountains there. And it's actually hitting off the other side of the rocks over on this side of the lake. And some grasses that grow up around this rock as well. It's time to add some happy little trees here. So we begin by just blocking in the shapes of the trees. Kind of refining their shape here. And then we go in to start work on rendering them out. Putting the light colors on the side where the light's hitting, and the dark colors on the shaded sides. We're also trying to indicate a texture that the wood has here. Not being too particular about which pixels are going where. Start on this little tree in the background here. Roughen it up a little bit. Just trying to give the idea of bark. Onto the other side of the lake. Here I try to work with these real thin trees, but I feel like I just don't have enough pixels. So I end up making the trunks a little thicker. That way we've got room for a lighted and shaded side of the tree. Alright, the texture on these trees is starting to look pretty good. Time to add some branches in. These branches are really reaching for the sky. A lot of vigor in these branches here. They are winning the fight against gravity. Put the shaded pieces of where the branches connect to the trunk. Some more little branches here and there. Put a little stick tree kind of leaning out over the lake here. And we'll work on some branches for these trees over on the other side of the lake. These branches that are in front of that real bright sunset make for a real dramatic look. And just applying a little bit of texture to these branches here. And I take the very top of that right tree out. We need to put some grass in over these trunks to make it look like they're part of the land here, not just superimposed on top of it. And next, these trees on the left side of the lake need a little bit of foliage. Kind of like we're in the fall season here, so we're gonna do some orange foliage on these trees here. Just start by blocking it out. And then we're going to add some light colors on the sides of these branch foliage nodes that are getting hit by the light. Just to give the indication that these are round and not flat. We do a couple levels of shading here. We do want to indicate some real dark portions of the foliage here, since that sun is about down over the hill. Here we're just kind of mixing it up a little bit, adding some randomness to the colors on these batches of foliage. Alright, then we're going to drop the opacity a little bit. these trees here do a really good job of framing our mountains. Next, we're gonna vary the vegetation a little bit on this island here. Add some yellowish plants. Maybe an extra little rock here. Now it's time to start working on the lake reflection. To do that, I create a new layer and drop its opacity and start copying the landscape behind the lake here and pasting it in, lining it up with the water line here. I have to flip it vertically before I paste it in there, of course. Just lining up the rest of this reflection with the water line. Now we've got the mid-ground mountains and bushes in there, but we've got the sky to figure out next. We've got our sky on our reflection here. I kind of move things around a little bit because reflections are not always perfect images. The water's moving a little bit, so I try to move things around here just a little bit. That moving water will create little ripples. The side of the ripples that are facing us aren't going to reflect the sky. So adding a few more ripples in here, trying to keep an eye on my thumbnail version of the image. Now we're defining the water line a little more here. Need to fix up some of the reflections of the rocks and bushes that kind of stick out in front of the light source here. So this rock here is going to reflect into the water in front of it, along with the rock on the other side. Here I noticed that our tree foliage was blending into the background, so I changed the mountains a little bit to have more snow in that area to create a better contrast. And I feel like we need some more plants over here. I'm just bouncing around the canvas, fixing up little things that I see. Alright, I decide I want to animate the ripples of the water here moving. So I start shifting the ripples around on the lake. Trying to get them to just move back and forth a little bit. So Since it is fall, these trees could be dropping some leaves, so I start animating some leaves falling onto the ground here. I do that by just moving them down and over a tiny bit on each frame, adding new leaves in at the top as the others fall to the ground, trying to create something that loops somewhat convincingly. And we need to also add a pile of leaves at the bottom of this tree here. Once we've got the animation done, they don't just disappear. I hope you enjoyed this rendition of Bob Ross's Season 12, Episode 10, Portrait of Mountain at Sunset.